Good morning, class. Today we are working on Math, Unit 1, Lesson 11 homework. And today we're going to be talking about reasonable answers. We're going to be estimating sums and differences of fractions and mixed numbers to decide whether answers are reasonable. Today we're going to be using specific fraction benchmarks to help us estimate the sum or the difference of fractions and mixed numbers. We will be using the benchmarks of 0, 1/2, and 1. And so I'm going to draw a number line right here. And on this number line, I'm going to include 1. I'm going to include 1/2. And I'm going to include 0. And those are the benchmarks we'll be using today. We're going to simply plot fractions on this number line, and I'm going to show you how you can do that, just so that you can compare or estimate sums. Number 1 is we have two different fractions. We have 2/5 and we have 4/7. And in order to estimate the sum or difference, sometimes creating a mental picture of where those fractions fit on a number line can be helpful. If we were to break this fraction bar up into fifths, here we would have the 1 would be 5/5. Okay, the half would be 2.5 fifths. 0 would be 0/5. And you could then plot the numbers in between. And you would have 4/5, 3/5, 2/5, and 1/5. And you can see that your 2/5 is right here on the number line. If we were to plot 4/7, we would break our fraction bar up into sevenths. And that would be, this would be 7/7, would be 1 whole. This would be 0/7. And half would be 3.5/7. Then you'd have 3/7, 2/7, 1/7, 4/7, 5/7, and 6/7. And you can see that 4/7 is right here. And if you were to compare those two numbers, you would know that 4/7, then you can see from our picture, is larger than 2/5. You can also just look at it as 4/7 is greater than half and 2/5 is less than half. Now when we're estimating, I want to know specifically with 2/5, is 2/5 closest, okay, and we have our 2/5 right here. Is it closest to 1/2, 0, or 1? Well, 2/5 is really close to 1/2. So you would estimate 2/5 to be really close to 1/2, and you can see that 2/5 is closer to 1/2 than it is to 0. You can look at 4/7, and you can see that 4/7 is pretty close to 1/2, not that close to 1, and definitely not that close to 0. So 4/7 would also be close to 1/2. So if you were to estimate the sum of the two of them, you would estimate it to be 1, because 1/2 plus 1/2 is equal to 1. Now, if you were to actually add them together, you're going to need to find the sum, and that means you're going to need to find a common denominator. And you have 2/5 plus 4/7. And 35 is going to be the denominator that I'm going to use. I'm going to multiply top and bottom here by 7. And I'm going to multiply top and bottom down here by 5. And I'm going to have 14/35. And I'm going to add that to 20/35. And 20 plus 14 is equal to 34. And your denominator stays the same. And I can see that 34/35 is my answer. 34 35ths, and I can check to see that my estimate is close. Well, it's really close to 1. 34 35ths is very close to 1 because 1 would be 35 35ths. So it's very close. So I know my estimate was good. If I am going to look then now to number 2, I'm going to draw my same number line to create that visual. We're going to have 0, we're going to have 1, and we're going to have 1/2 again. And I have two fractions here. I have 13/20ths and I have 3/10ths. So I'm going to write these down here. 13/20ths we'll do in red, and 3/10ths we'll do in green. If I were to break my number bar up, half of 10/10ths, or half of 1 whole, right? Or half of tenths would be 5/10ths. And this would be 0/10ths here. And this would be 10/10ths would be 1 whole. If I were to do 20ths, okay, we could move to red. This would be 20/20ths. This would be 10/20ths. And this would be 0/20ths. And then I could plot them, and I could see pretty quickly where they're going to go, even without drawing the hash marks. I'm going to draw them so that you can see the visual. But I have 5, and if I break it up into tenths, I have to have 5 on each side. So 5 is your center mark. 4, oops, this one should be green. 4, 3, 2, and 1. So there's 1/10, there's 2/10, there's 3/10, and there's 4/10. There's 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, and 9/10. Now, when you move to 20th, your 20th are going to fall in between each of those green. So 0/20 is the same as 0/10, okay? 1/20 is going to fall right in between. So you're going to have 1/20. 2/20 is going to be equal to 1/10. So you're going to have 2/20. Then you're going to have 3/20 in between. And then 4/20 is going to be equal to 3/10, and so on. So you're going to have a hash mark in between each of these to get you to your 13/10. And we can just count up. So we're going to just go, we have to count the red and the green because the reds are in between. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So this is going to be 13/20. We can now see that 13/20 is really close to a half. Okay, so 13/20 is pretty close to a half. So when we're estimating, we can say 13/20 is pretty close to a half. 3/10, okay, 3/10 is going to be closer to a half than it is to 0. So 3/10 is going to be estimated to be a half. And in number 2, we're estimating to find the difference, which means subtraction. So a half minus a half is going to be 0. So the estimation is going to be 0. Now we have to actually find the difference. And here we have 13/20 minus 3/10. I need to have a common denominator, and I know that 10 can go into 20, so I'm going to multiply the top and bottom of the bottom fraction both by 2 to get 20ths. And it's 3 times 2 is equal to 6, and 2 times 10 is equal to 20. I'm going to bring over my other fraction, and now I have 13/20 minus 6/20, and 13 minus 6 is equal to 7. My denominator stays the same. So my answer is going to be 7/20. You're going to go ahead and complete number 3, estimation and the sum on your own. Okay, for numbers 4 through 6, it says estimate the sum or difference by rounding each mixed number to the nearest whole number, then find the actual sum or difference. So we're rounding to the nearest whole number, so if it's a half, or remember 0.5 and 1/2 are the same, you're going to round up. So if we look at number 4, we have 3 and 5/8, okay, and 5/8 is larger than half because 4/4 would be half. So this is going to round up to 4. That's the nearest whole number. 1 and 1/2, Okay, 1/2 is also, okay, 0.5, and that's also going to round up, and it's going to be 2. So we are actually going to have estimate of 4 minus 2, which is equal to 2. And so your estimate is going to be 2. Now you have to find the actual difference, and in order to find the actual difference, you have to get yourself a common denominator. So we have 3 5/8 minus 1 and 1/2. And I know that 2 can go into 8 evenly, and so I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 4 to get 8. And so I am now going to have 1 times 4 is equal to 4, and 2 times 4 is equal to 8, and so my fraction is going to be 4/8. So I'm going to move it over. I'm going to move my whole number over, so I have 1 4/8, and then I'm going to move my top number over, 3 5/8. So we now have 3 5/8 minus 1 4/8, and 5 minus 4 is equal to 1. My denominator stays the same, so it's 8ths, and 3, my whole number, 3 minus 1 is equal to 2. So my answer is going to be 2 1/8. 2 1/8. I'm going to now have you guys move down. You can do 5 and 6 on your own, but I'm going to have you move down to 7 through 10. And 7 through 10, it says tell whether the answer is reasonable or unreasonable and explain how you decided. We have mixed numbers in number 7, so we have 2 and 1/5. We have 5 and 1/3. And we need to see if 7 8/15 is reasonable or not. So we're going to round these to the nearest whole number. 2 and 1/5, well, that's much closer to 2 than it is to 3. So 2, and then 5 and 1/3, okay, is closer to 5. So 5 plus 2 is equal to 7. So I would say 5 plus 2 equals 7. So 7 8/15 is reasonable. And I typed it so that it was a little cleaner for you to read as we practice. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. We can go ahead and look at number 8. And number 8 reads 7/8 and minus 2/11 is equal to 9/19. And we need to figure out if it's reasonable. Well, we're going to use rounding or estimation again. 7/8 is really close to 1, right? Because 8/8 is 1. So we're going to round that to 1. Okay, 2/11 is not close to 11/11. Okay, half would be 5.5/11, and it's not that close to that either. So this is really closer to 0 if we use benchmarking. So our equation would be 1 minus 0 is equal to 1. So I would say 9/19 is unreasonable because 1 and 9/19 aren't close. 9/19 is less than half. Okay, so I would say it's unreasonable based on rounding. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to let you do numbers 9 and 10 on your own, and I'm going to move down to number 11. And so when we look at number 11, it says estimate the difference 8 7/12 minus 4 7/8 minus 4/10 and explain how you found the answer. Well, we're going to use the benchmarks of 0, 1/2, and 1 like we did in the beginning. So we're going to use benchmarks of 0, 1/2, and 1, just like we did to start, to help us estimate. We know that our first number, 8 7/12, okay, 8 7/12 is really close to 8.5. Okay, 8.5 would be 7/12. If we took 7/12, okay, 6/12 would be what? A half. So 6/12 is equal to a half. So 8 7/12 is really close to 8 1/2. And I'm going to write that right above. Okay, so we have our first number estimated to be 8.5. Now we're going to look at our second number, and our second number is 4 7/8. Well, 4 7/8 is really close to 5 because 8/8 is 1 whole, and 7/8 is really close. It's barely less than really close to 7/8. So we're going to round our 4 7/8 to 5. And I'm going to write that above. And then we're going to look at the third fraction, which is 4/10, and we're going to decide, is 4/10 closer to 0, 1/2, or 1? Well, 5/10, okay, is half. So 5/10 is half, and 4 is really close to 5/10. So we're going to estimate that 4/10 to be 1/2. And I'm going to go ahead and write that half above. And now we can do our subtraction with our estimated values. 8.5 minus 5 is equal to 3 1/2. And then 3 1/2 minus 1/2 is equal to 3. And so your answer here is going to be 3, but make sure you include this whole equation that we have right here. I'm going to put a box around it so you can see it, and make sure you have 8.5 minus 5 minus 1/2 is equal to 3. So today you have 5 problems. You have number 3, 5, 6, 9, and 10 to complete on your own. When you finish those, please take a picture, attach it to your assignment, and turn it in on Teams. Thank you.